ist mir auch nicht ganz unbekannt. Ja.
Hat er etwas mit Share?
Ich hätte einfach noch eben so gerne. Ja, also wenn ich jetzt das...
Don't worry. You are in the right show. Today we are having a shark from the Swiss SharkTank on our podcast. I'm very excited. Hello and welcome to Biology Career Insights, the podcast where we talk with experts from the field of biology to gain valuable insights into their careers and explore ways to navigate the job market in this ever-evolving field. I'm your host, Dr. Manish Kumar. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Tobias Reichmuth. Tobias is one of the coolest sharks of the Swiss Shark Tank show and aims at healthy 120 years of life. Dr. Reichmuth is a serial entrepreneur and investor, and now the founding partner and CEO at Maximon, a longevity company builder based in Zug, Switzerland. Dr. Reichmuth holds a PhD in business administration and has also worked previously as a strategy consultant for the Boston Consulting Group. Tobias is building companies since he has been 21 years old. He exited his first startups in 2003, thereafter built Europe's leading climate change infrastructure fund, SUSI Partners, co-founded Crypto Finance Group and the Singularity Group, and has invested in more than 20 startups till date. In 2020, he has launched the Longevity Investors Conference together with Marc P. Bernegger. Tobias, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for welcoming me.
Amazing. So we start right away, Tobias, and perhaps you can say what inspired you to be an entrepreneur and how did you get started in the field?
I think for me, it was always clear that I want to be an entrepreneur. Since age 5, 6, I started to play Monopoly. I wanted to win. And I always loved the independence. I like to work. I work hard, but I like to work on things I think make sense. And so in my total career, I only spent 2 years as an employee at Boston Consulting Group. That was good. It was like an extended and paid education. But for the rest of it, I prefer to work on my own projects and move as fast as I want, and not being slowed down by employers or so. So for me, it was never really a big question. From the beginning on, I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Amazing. Perhaps for the audience, if you can give a brief background of your educational, your degrees and your journey of being a serial entrepreneur, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I studied business administration. I always liked to do side projects while being a student. So, I dealt with old exams, for example. I dealt with old cars. And in 2000, I was an intern doing an internship in the topic of employer branding, and I realized nobody in Europe at that time knew what employer branding was, and so I decided, okay, I built my first company, and there I was still a student. So I built
your bachelor's that time, or still in the school.
That was before the time of bachelor's and masters. I'm that old. It was called Lizenziat in Switzerland. Yeah, so it's you study 4 years and then you have your master's, so to say, but there is nothing in between. Mm-hmm. So anyway, as a student, I built that first company, and when I graduated, I also sold that company because I realized it was very nice to pay my bills as a student, but it was not scalable. It was just project by project, and there was a German competitor. They wanted to understand employer branding at this time, still new, and they took my company over with some projects. And then, as I said, I joined Boston Consulting. To be honest, also a bit because I wanted to go on a world trip, but my girlfriend at that time was still studying, and then I thought, okay, why not doing a bit of consulting? But I knew I would never last there, so I did my 2 years, and then I went on the world trip. At that time, that girl was not my girlfriend anymore, so basically, and then I traveled for 2 years. But before I started traveling, I thought, maybe I should do something in the evenings or so. And I started a PhD at the European Business School in Österreich-Winkel. They had a good program where you did not have to be physically present too much. So I could the physical seminars I could do within half a year when I was still at BCG. And then I was able to travel. Now, honestly, that was a mistake. So traveling, I was traveling by car around the world. So always with the same Swiss number plate, shipping the car in containers and so on. And I didn't have time to do my PhD really. So I was able in those 2 years of traveling to finish my pre-study. And luckily my professor had a bit of understanding for what I was doing. And when I came back in 2008, I realized that A, I want to be entrepreneur again. B, on this trip, I had learned a lot about climate change. I have seen climate change happening left and right, whether you are in Bolivia or in Alaska or in Russia, it doesn't matter. And I said, I want to fight climate change. So I was looking for entrepreneur with a mission, and something scalable this time. And I founded SUSI Partners, which is a climate change infrastructure investment company, which by now has roughly 2 billion euros assets under management. So it was growing nicely. And I built that for quite a while. In the same time, I tried to finish my PhD, which in 2012 I finally managed to do. Not the best work ever, but hey, I just wanted to finish it. Yeah. And and to be honest, I mean, in my career later on, did I need that PhD? Well, not really. Maybe it gives a bit of credibility if you are at a conference and you're a young guy and somebody says, well, this is Dr. Reichmuth or so. But, I was not a researcher. So it was a nice project. Yeah. And then in 2016, I got hungry again for more entrepreneurship because my company, SUSI Partners, at that time was running quite well. And I became more and more a manager. So I was the CEO, but, it was not this building blocks. It was more like, hey, managing a company, growth, and so on. And I said, okay, I need to have food for thought. And I heard about Singularity University in Palo Alto. So I basically went there for this executive program, which was amazing. 1 week of exponential technologies, and I came home with a basket full of ideas. I still was the CEO of SUSI Partners, but I had a bit of time at the hands, and so I co-founded Crypto Finance Group and Singularity Group. Crypto Finance Group, as the name says, is a cryptocurrency company providing services to institutional clients, basically. We sold that company in 2021 to Deutsche Börse, so that was lucky timing, I guess, just before the all-time high of Bitcoin.
Wow.
And Singularity Group is a fund manager dealing with exponential development of technology. So basically, how can you find those companies which are prepared for the exponential technology development? Yeah. But in those companies, I took more a board role as a co-founder. And then in 2020, I also handed over the leadership of SUSI Partners, which at that time it's an institutional player. Yeah? And I decided that my job can be done by managers. You don't need entrepreneurs. And so I handed over that leadership, still stayed shareholder and president of the board. But I had first time in whatever, 12, 13 years, I had a free head. Yeah. And I said, okay, I'm too young to be private investor or business angel. I need to do stuff. And I thought, okay, what topic I found really interesting in the last year? And this was longevity. And I had heard about it also when I was at Singularity University. And so I said, okay, let's look at it. And 2020 was lucky for that, or a good year, because everybody had time to talk. And so I could call Nia Barcelay, Aubrey de Grey, David Sinclair, and everybody had time to chat with me and answer my questions. And I got an understanding of what is happening in longevity research. And I also understood that there is a lot of great research results and the great researchers out there, but many of them don't know how to build a company. Absolutely. And so what I said is, hey, I know how to build companies. I need to team up with these guys. And let's do an incubator, company builder, venture studio, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And this was the birth hour, basically, of Maximon, which I built then together with my partners. And maybe a last thing here, as a tip, whenever you enter a completely new field, as I have done several times, I was in human resources, then I built a company in renewable energy, then one in cryptocurrencies, and then now basically in longevity, the best thing to enter an industry is to organize a conference. And why? Because if you organize a conference, everybody in the industry gets to know you, and you get to know everybody as well within 1 year. And so that's what we did with the Longevity Investors Conference. Yeah? And before we had done this with the Crypto Finance Conference. And so for me, this was a good way of entering in it. And I realized, wow, there is really a lot of space for entrepreneurs and capital and investors and so on. And yeah, this was then how we built Maximon out of the conference. Yeah.
Amazing. So we'll dig deeper into Maximon a bit later, but I wanted to come to your, your first, say, twist with the entrepreneurship journey. So you started a company. Was it bootstrapped, or you also had experience of like raising funds and stuff? How did the first company during your school times, become bigger?
Extremely bootstrapped. I mean, but my first company was a project-oriented business. You needed a website, a business card, and at that time you still needed a printer. But this was, you could start doing a job with like $2,000-3,000.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Because it was, I hired other students to be consultants for those companies who want to build an employer brand. And so we were extremely bootstrapped. And also, my living costs were low and so on. So that's why I always tell everybody, if you want to be an entrepreneur, do it early. Your opportunity costs are low. I mean, if you do it when you're 45 and you have 2 kids and a holiday house and you have a leased Porsche and whatever, it's difficult to become an entrepreneur. But when you're a student, hey, life is not so much different from a student than to an entrepreneur. Eh?
Amazing. That's so inspiring. And after you sold your first company, you already, of course, had some money. And with that, you kind of build your, your SUSI Partners, right?
Nope.
Or you never raised funds for any of the previous companies? Or
no, I mean, with that money, I went traveling. That was my 2-year trip around the world.
All right.
And I almost spent it all, not all, but almost all of it. Because it was the best thing I could do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came home, I think I had still $40,000 left.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked my father for a loan of another 10K. And with the 50K, I was able to basically in Switzerland launch a company where you pay in 50% of the share capital, but then you have a company. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I rented an office because, what represents a company, at least in the old times. Nowadays it's different, but in that time it was like, hey, there is a meeting room and there is an office with your doorbell on it and you have a business card and a homepage. And so this I could do. And then I raised some money from business angels and friends, really friends, as you say, friends, family, and fools. Yeah? They believed in what I want to do. Climate change, maybe at that time, was not yet an understood topic. ESG as a word didn't even exist. Yeah? But we were extremely bootstrapped. I mean, I built my first fund, fully fledged Luxembourg fund structure with 150K.
Wow.
Including 1 year of work with the GP, with employees, but my employees were interns at that time. And I asked friends from left and right to consult a bit and gave them a little bit of shares and so on. And so we were super bootstrapped. And today I would say it's not even possible to do this, but probably I'm wrong. Probably there is other ways to do it. Yeah?
Absolutely. But I think this is such an inspiring journey because, many people think that to start, to bootstrap, you already need to be a millionaire, which is not the case, right? Like you can always say, squeeze some money from friends and family or people who believe in you. And then later on, when you become big, of course, other partners are happy to kind of collaborate with you, right? So this was...
Yeah, I mean, my earliest investors, they made a factor of 53 with their investment at that time. So it was nice for them. Yeah?
Amazing, amazing. And, Tobias, I see that, you have built companies, say, across fields like climate change, then longevity, then cryptocurrency. And of course, it's not easy as a person, to build companies. But to gain, deeper knowledge, for example, in a particular field, it's not easy. And I see you already have so many TED Talks on longevity and you make correct sense. So how did the science happen? How did you learn about longevity? Was it only through the conference or by talking, or you also self-taught yourself some science?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is this is a topic very dear to me and probably almost everybody, because nobody wants to get sick and old if you can stay healthy and young. Yeah. And then I have parents who are in the age right now of the 70s. And so I really started to learn, and at the beginning it was tough. I mean, I had to, get with the biology book to, okay, what exactly is this mitochondria doing again, and what the hell are telomeres? And because I study business, so
that's why this question, because I saw your TED Talks and you were talking about the hallmarks of aging, and I'm an aging researcher as well, and that was like I was so curious about how you educated yourself into the basics of it.
Yeah, but I mean, we have a great advisory board at Maximon, with PhDs and professors. In our team, we have PhDs, doctors, medical doctors as well, and so on. And so, working closely together with our startup companies, with my partners, I mean, I learn every day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have discussions about, what is this doing or that doing. Avea is one of our portfolio companies, supplement company. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm an ambassador for them, but at the same time, I need to understand what is it that we do. Why is this new collagen better than any other collagen? Explain it to me. Yeah, and so they have to break it down in a language that me, as a non-biochemistry scientist, has to understand it. And this works very well. And for me, why do I enter new businesses every 10 years or so? Because you learn. Mm-hmm. You don't make more money. Probably you make more money if you would stay with your business and you grow it big, but it's boring. So for me, the interesting thing is to enter a new topic and really get expertise there and learn. Yeah.
Great, but there's there's also a danger of being fooled, because you see that I mean, I consider say venture capitalists or investors quite smart people, right? But then there have been debacles like Theranos, for example, right? Where like you do all the due diligence and still the company is kind of a fraud, right? So how do you ensure that, you are not fooled by the experts?
Yeah. Well, look, one important difference. We are not a venture capitalist. So, it's not that a team comes to us and says, hey, guys, give us $1 million, we are worth 10 million. It's more that we build the company from scratch together with somebody. And before we do that, we do a validation of 6 to 12 months. And we work together with that person. We dig into the science. We dig into the regulatory environment, in the market size. We try to find out whether our audience is ready. Is the market ready for that? Yeah, and sometimes it's not. And so in this 6 to 12 months, I think we reduce risk a lot. Mm-hmm. We understand what this molecule should do or is doing. We look at the test, and luckily it's not me having to go through the biological test results or so, or the studies. I mean, that's done by our chief scientist, Elizabeth, and her team. And so I have on my side of the table experts, and I think that's the best thing you can do. I mean, I would never have the idea that I myself am able to challenge a scientist in the nitty-gritty stuff, because I'm not that deep in that.
Yeah, I totally understand. So you leverage your network, you leverage your your partners who have expertise.
That's why we have a big team, yeah. Mm-hmm. And an advisory board and so on, contacts with all the universities. So yeah,
amazing. Now we'll go a bit deeper into building Maximon, because I think Maximon is a company builder. But then perhaps it would be interesting for me to know your building of Maximon. So you said that you started a aging conference, like you did a longevity conference. You invited all like key players in the field, say David Sinclair, Abu Digray. These are all like well-known names. And how did you go about like building? Like when was that you decided that I'll build, say, something, not an aging company per se, but a company that facilitates aging companies, right? This is what Maximon does.
Look, I mean, at that time in 2020, I was sitting together with my friend Marc Bernegger. Mm-hmm. We have built companies in the past. We were both active in crypto as well. And we discussed the topic of longevity, which we both found super interesting. And our first idea was, hey, maybe we do a venture capital fund. We know how to fundraise. We have a bit of money ourselves now. Why not doing that? And to be honest, in the preparation of that conference then, I was looking for targets, ventures which might need investment. And to be honest, all I have seen was either very advanced, a huge bet, biotech bet in the future, and maybe not even that longevity connected, or it was more ideas than companies. And so what we realized is it's too early for a venture capital fund. And we said, you know what we need is not a venture capital fund. We need this incubator or venture builder, venture studio, to help building those companies. And that's when we decided, you know what, we do the conference and then we do Maximon as a venture studio. Yeah.
So perhaps for the audience, you can still tell us the difference between venture capital and venture studio, and also like how Maximon supports company building in the aging field.
Sure. So look, venture capital is, as the name says, a capital provision which goes to already existing startups. The team is there, they have a strategy, they might already have a product, they are probably some, 1.5, 2, 3 years in the market. They already can show something, that there is something. And the venture capitalist comes, does an analysis, a due diligence, and says, hey, I want to support your further growth. I give you here, 1, 5, 10 million, and I will get shares of your company. And then the venture capitalist will also open doors and says, hey, I have a network. I want to have a seat in your board. I will guide you a bit on the strategy way and so on. But it's not that they take you close by the hand. Now, what the venture studio or incubator is doing is we are building the company together with the founder from day zero. So let's say if you are a researcher and you found great results in your studies as a postdoc, and they say, wow, out of this we could do a product, but maybe I don't know how to build a company, or I want to have support, you knock at our door, and then we say, yeah, let's look into this. If we like this idea, if we like you, we give you 6 to 12 months time. We pay you a salary, kind of a normal salary, and you have time to research deeper into that topic and to build a business plan together with us. And we support you on that. And I mean, support really, you get one of our venture architects by your side and you work together as a team. Yeah. And after the 6 to 12 months, we decide, does it make sense? Is it the right timing? Is the market big enough? Does this IP work or not? And so on. Yeah. What risks are associated with? And let's say we give it a go, then you become a founder and you get shares of that company. You get a small salary, not a big one, because we don't want to trigger or motivate people by salary. We want to motivate them by upside. And then, most importantly, you get co-founders from us temporarily. What does this mean? So you are the head of product. You need a head of marketing. You need a head of production and supply chain, a COO. Yeah. And maybe you don't have them on day one, which is normally the case. And what we don't want is we don't want to press you to now select your team within the next 2 weeks, because if you have to do so, you will make compromises and your team will not be the best one. And the team is always critical when it comes to success, more critical than the idea. And so what we say is, hey, Tobias is your head of marketing now for the next 6, 12 months, whatever is needed. Yeah? And Caroline is your COO and head of production. And we, together with our HR team, so that's the next building block, our HR team helps you finding the suitable co-founders. But in the meantime, we already work hands-on with you. Yeah? So we don't lose time. We go into the market. We help you interviewing the new candidates and so on. Secondly, the whole legal setup we do together with you, like, best in class, with that you have your shareholders agreement and everything's clean in place. Yeah. We do the finance from day one on, because that's a problem often startups had. They focus on the product, they forget about doing bookkeeping. So that's all done. We give you all the IT tools. We give you a workspace should you need that, if you don't want to work virtually. Yeah. So our job is to keep your back free. We work from day one operationally as a co-founder with you, and at the same time we make sure that you can fully focus on the product and time to market, and you don't have to do the back office stuff. That's all done by us, basically. So that's a bit the venture studio approach.
Wow, that's quite fascinating, because you basically enable any idea right at the beginning. If somebody is scared to build a company out of his fascinating idea, you enable them. But Tobias, I would like to dig deeper into that. What is the equity structure like? How much equity do you ask for, for enabling a particular founder to kind of,
But maybe what I should also mention is we also provide capital. So we provide up to 10 million Swiss francs, US dollars, it's more or less the same, up to Series A, not on day one. So it's not that we give you the money and say good luck. but it's really that we develop the business plan together with you, and then based on milestones, we finance it. This is a huge advantage versus founding yourself. Why? You don't have to run around and do roadshows and fundraising. You know where you get the money. If you meet your milestones, you get the money. And this takes a huge burden away, and it takes probably 50% of your work time. So this is important. Now, how do we do it? The founders team gets 50% of the company, and you still have the 50% when you enter a Series A, which should be a double-digit financing round. So by then, your company should be worth 50 million or more, 50 million or more. Maximon gets 25%. That's the sweat equity. We don't take money, so we don't take any liquidity out of the company. All what we do, what I just have described, is paid by sweat equity. And our fund, which provides you the up to 10 million, also gets 25%. And so when we enter a Series A is a funding round where significant amounts of capital come, as I said, 10, 20 million new money or so. By then, we are in the same boat. We are all shareholders, and it's 50% in the team, 25% Maximon, 25% the fund.
Amazing, amazing. So, perhaps you can highlight some interesting stories or, some successful ventures that you have already enabled. As you were mentioning about, I think, Avia, right? So perhaps,
sure.
If you can mention what Maximon has already done so far.
Yeah. We have 4 portfolio companies live as of today, 2 more coming this year, hopefully. The first one was Avea. Avea is a supplement company. That's AVEA. And the supplement company here is focused on science-based longevity supplements, Swiss-made. And this is a bit of a USP, I think, because we don't produce vitamin C. We leave this to others, but we really look at what is needed for longevity, and we move into a more personalized health prevention side and so on. And the company is doing very well. I think they also had a very good breakthrough when they were able to get a new collagen to the market, which is basically a broken down collagen structure, which is only 10% of the amino acid chain length, which like this can easier enter the membranes of the cells, and that triggers the production of collagen. And this we did together with ETH, so the Swiss version of the MIT, have a patent on it and so on. So, that's the kind of products there. And then we do direct to consumer. So it's a lot about marketing, going to understanding the customer, performance marketing, and so on. And this company is moving extremely fast. So they are ahead of the business plan. Very nice growth, great team. We are already in Asia now after 1.5 years. So yeah, that's the first one doing very well.
Amazing. And these patents and everything, that happened while you already were on the seat, right?
Yeah. I mean, we basically teamed up with ETH and Professor Colin Ewald here, who basically said, hey, look, exactly this. I found something great. And we said, well, let's do a company out of that, or a product. And that's what we did. Yeah.
Amazing, Tobias. And, as a follow-up questions, perhaps there are a lot of aging researchers, right, in different Max Plancks and, different prestigious institutes across Europe. And somebody wants to build a company. How should they approach you? What's the way that they should approach you?
Well, the easiest one is via our website, maximon.com. And there we basically have a career address for founders or potential founders, and just contact us, explain what your business idea might be. You don't have to send too much material. It's an executive summary is enough. Yeah. And if we like the idea and we like your CV, we invite you for a first interview. And should that work, should that then still be interesting, we invite you to visit us in Zug, Switzerland, where we really start discussing how we could do this together.
Amazing. And now about some challenges, because I see the startup world is quite mature in, say, US, where you kind of travel, right? Like into the Singular University and stuff like that you were mentioning. So how do you see the European landscape evolving, especially in the longevity field, given that US is already far ahead, especially in the startup world? What are the challenges that you see currently in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, there is several. Yeah, United States is a very good breeding ground for startups, but Europe is catching up. What are the challenges? The European market is bigger than the US market, but we have a lot of barriers in between, different languages, even different currencies and so on. So that's not easy to overcome, but there is more and more technologies which help. Secondly, we still have a bit of a culture of failure is really bad. I mean, I also don't like failure, but some entrepreneurs who have failed previously might do very well second time. And this is something which in the US is better understood than in Europe. And thirdly, in Europe, we still lack funding. We do not have big enough VCs. We do have funding for the first steps. If you need a million or two, you can find that. If you need 10, 20, 50, 100 million, it gets more difficult. And there, I think, the EIF, European Investment Fund, and other entities are helping. That makes it better now, but we still have a bit of catch up to do.
Amazing. So I see, a lot of exciting developments happening in the longevity field. And I already saw your TED talk, and you were mentioning about, this senior co-living space and stuff like that. So, perhaps you can highlight some of the exciting developments, and how do you also leverage the knowledge into building new companies, if you can highlight some of those.
Yeah, I mean, next to Avea, we have Biologica. Biologica is the backbone for health data and prevention. Yeah. What they do is they collect based on your DNA, all your relevant biomarker data, and with AI can advise you on what you should do in order to basically bring those biomarkers into a field where it makes sense. So bring down your blood pressure or whatever. Yeah. Monitor it. There's a cockpit behind, so it has APIs with all the different wearables. So it's very clever. And what we already see now is this is sought after by clinics, but for example, it's also thought after by our own other companies. So Avea talks with Biologica on how to integrate the Biologica tool for their customers, so that they have a cockpit on their mobile where they can track the changes they do. We have a company called Ayun. Ayun is a longevity walk-in clinic chain. First one opens in September in Switzerland. Again, here they also need the tool of Biologica's, but they also, for example, can use the supplements of Avea. So you see that the ecosystem is building basically. We have another one, senior co-living. You have mentioned it there. It's about this is a completely different field. There we look at longevity, not for longevity promotion, but more about longevity consumption, meaning how is our society changing when people are very healthy in their 60s to 90s? They need new forms of living together. And so we said, let's do a Soho house for seniors. And that's basically what we do there. And so all these companies have advisory boards again. They meet a lot of people. New ideas come via them to us again. And so that this ecosystem idea is really what we want to build. And what we also say is, we see a bit of a longevity valley developing here in Switzerland, and that's exactly what we want. And what we also plan to do is to open a campus, longevity campus, where all those companies and other companies, not Maximon companies, but other longevity companies can work together. They have lab facilities and so on. We invite, biotech companies, pharma companies, and so on. So we want really to bring everybody to one space because we believe a lot in spillovers. We are in a super exciting topic. A lot of innovation is happening. And therefore, you should motivate people to talk to each other, explain what they do, open their sources and their network. That's only beneficial. Then.
Amazing. I mean, this is, like the senior co-living space that, you briefly mentioned. And as you said, like there will be so many changes with the health span increasing, there will be, I mean, even the finance and economics will change, right? Because the insurance changes. So you are not only, say, Maximon is not just helping, say, biological company or biological aging companies, say, being built, but you also enable companies around, say, finance or around anything to do with longevity space, right? This is...
Look, I mean, even a bit the other side of the coin. So we try to avoid the classic biotech risk, the binary biotech risk. So we normally don't go into a drug development process over 10 to 15 years with FDA approval steps and so on. We rather look at lower hanging fruits and maybe a bit more the consumer longevity. So can we do the road to market? Can this be via supplements, via cosmetica, via drug repurposing, for example, or services? What I really like are those platform ideas like Biologica, or other shovels to the gold rush ideas where you help this whole trend happening. And that is our main focus, basically.
Amazing. So finally, one of the most important questions of this section, because, this is heard by a lot of biologists, especially. So what advice would you give to, aspiring biologists who are considering, say, a career in entrepreneurship, or some of them are also looking forward to building companies in the longevity areas? What would be your advice to them?
Well, first of all, you need co-founders which are not the same as you. So if your best buddies are also, bioengineers, whatever, well, I'm not sure who of you should be the head of marketing or so. Yeah. So it makes sense to look a bit outside of your normal circle of friends if you want to find co-founders. Second, you don't need to have a 100% solution when you come to market first. It's better to go to market early, test it, whether this is needed, what you developed here, than to have the 100% solutions for the wait for 3 years. So what I know is scientists often tend a bit to over-engineer, and that's not what you need at the beginning. It is something you can do later. What I also would say, you need a bit of a characteristic, which is, it doesn't matter what you have studied, but you need to be optimist. It's almost impossible to become an entrepreneur if you're a pessimist, because yes, things go wrong all the time. And the question is, can you stand up if they go wrong and win it, do it again until it works? And you need to be an optimist, otherwise it's just super difficult to do it. And if you're interested in that topic, I published a peer-reviewed paper on that, the 10 golden rules for entrepreneurs. Wow. With a lab background. Maybe you can share the link on that in your podcast. Yeah. And maybe this gives some guidance there. Yeah.
That is great. And finally, Tobias, please tell us about your hobbies. Anything related to longevity that you practice in general?
Well, yes. I mean, I changed my lifestyle quite a lot since I'm, active in this field of longevity. It comes from the diet I do, to sports, frequency of sports, what kind of sports, and so on. So I started to do high intensity interval training, more training for muscles. And luckily, sport is my hobby. And so I like to do a lot of sports. Yeah, I just shifted a bit of focus from only cardio, also more into weightlifting and stuff like that. Yeah, and other hobbies I have is I like to travel a lot, and traveling is great because you meet new ideas, new people. Reading, but I also like to read fiction books because often they tell you what is happening next, and this can be a great inspiration for entrepreneurs too.
Amazing. And when you said diet and stuff, you made some changes. So does it mean that you do, say, intermittent fasting, or you take some supplements, or perhaps highlight that, or do you recommend something for any other aging enthusiast?
Look, I think before you decide on what you want to do for longevity, it makes sense to find out where you stand. To do a DNA test, a blood test, maybe to also speak with a doctor who is fit in that field, because there is not the silver bullet. If I tell you you should do intermittent fasting, yes, that's most likely good for you, especially if you're male. But data suggests that for female before menopause, it might not be the best idea. Yeah. So it's individual, and I think that's something we need to learn more. We should look at personalized and preventive medicine, not in generalized and reactive. Yeah? So what do? Yes, I do intermittent fasting 6 days a week. I try to eat as a base diet vegan, but that's what I changed based on a DNA test. I found out that I have a risk of vitamin B12 deficiency genetically. And that's why now I decided to do 1 red meat day a week. Yeah. What else? I take NMN, that's a precursor for NAD+. Then
this NMN stuff, Tobias, so sorry to interrupt, because I see a lot of scientists promoting that, the NMN stuff, And you said very correctly, and I cannot agree more, that, every individual is different. So I think, it is advisable to go for a DNA test and, consult some expert before starting this supplement. But I see a tendency of most of the aging enthusiasts just taking NMN. And is that correct according to you?
No, I mean, again, you need to look where you stand. And, we have, or let's say at Avea, we looked at, I think, everything which has been published in that field, all the studies, because there has been a discussion on cancer risk. Now, there is data suggesting that it's based, NMN is no problem. Some other data says it might be a problem. So what I would say is, if you have cancer or had cancer, probably don't. Even if there is a small risk, it's not worth it. If you are healthy, 45, and you don't have cancer, or maybe you did a blood test to check on cancer cells, I think you're safe. It's a very individual opinion, of course. But again, you can also first do a test on what NAD+ levels you have. So that's what I meant. Just don't do like, oh yes, that's cool, let's do it. But maybe find a bit more out before that. I take omega-3. I take cauliflower powder and certain things which make sense for me.
Amazing. Many people I heard, they also take like things from the stressed plant. This is something like David Sinclair has been promoting, very lately. But that's for some other discussion. So Tobias, I think, thank you so much for your time. I know you have to go to another meeting, so thank you so much for your time. And and it's been a pleasure talking to you. This is what I can say. Yes.
My pleasure.
And to the audience, thank you for tuning to Biology Career Insights. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get the latest episodes delivered straight to your device. See you next time. Bye, Tobias. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.